Welcome to our new episode of Speak Revenue. Remember, revenue is not a goal, it's a result. But a result of what? In this show, we turn our eyes from the output towards the inputs. We speak to sales leaders and entrepreneurs about their journeys. Join us on our quest to uncover and learn the root causes of success. Let's unpack what works for them and what didn't. Today, with our guest, Jimmy Speyer.
Hey, Thomas, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you here. Thanks for taking the time. Let's get started right away. Let us know. Who are you? What do you do? Why are you so successful?
Well, I appreciate you taking time to chat with today. My name is Jimmy Speyer. I'm currently a CEO of a tech startup in the home services space. I'm very recently transitioning from being a revenue leader. I've been a SVP of sales, a VP of sales, a CRO, multiple verticalized software companies in a couple of different spaces, medical device technology, restaurant hospitality, and most recently in logistics. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and I am really passionate about revenue and growing verticalized tech startups.
Awesome. Great. You're definitely the right person to talk about the causes of results in the revenue space, in the RevOps space. Can you give us a quick picture to just for a start? What are your goals for this year? And what about next year?
So as a startup, our goals are to really look at initial traction in the market. We're looking for that initial product market fit. We've set some revenue targets. They're year over year against nothing as a recent endeavor, but we're looking to really start to prove out the concept of what we're building. We've already partnered with big customers, design partners. So now transitioning into that paying customer model and looking at scale in terms of going from that first 20 to 50 customers to that first 500.
Great. So that will cover next year as well, probably.
Yeah, that plan is to take us to the end of 2024.
Long journey to go, hopefully as short as possible. Could you step us through your sales process? Just beginning from lead generation, over closing to upsell.
Yeah, so I've been a student of Winning by Design, which is a sales process organization out of San Francisco. They really talk about what you think of as a bow tie revenue model, where the sale is the middle of the transaction. So you look at the expansion and adoption as the second half. So everything that goes into that customer acquisition is the first half, and you're measuring that usually 7 to 10 kind of moments that matter. And then you also have additional moments that matter. Are they adopting the software? Are we able to expand them? Do they renew? Do they come back for more? So I think about that in that regard. The best customers are the ones that you can not just sign, but that you can keep and that you can grow. So that would be kind of like base level for how I think about a sales process or a revenue model in general.
Right. So, well, of course, I know Winning by Design, and you are building the whole thing from the beginning on. So making sure that at the early stage, option is high and tension is high as well.
Correct. Speaking about a current company, but really the last 3 sales organizations, revenue teams that I've been a part of, looking at how are you growing that 120, 130% NRR. It comes from being able to identify the right customers at the beginning that have that propensity to grow. So it's understanding what is the value that you're bringing. I think another really important aspect to that is how you chop up a large solution or a multi-product approach. When you're really early in your growth stage as a business, it's usually, in my opinion, best and very easy to just be an all-in-one solution. Here it is. Take it. Use as much as you want. As you kind of define and develop your ICP and your various segments that you want to attack, figuring out where those moments of inflection are, where different personas want different things, allows you to kind of go not only target them on the front door, but then also figure out what can you upsell and how can you grow through expansion in that account. So understanding your product usage, understanding the value of those different pieces, really important.
Understood. You've mentioned finding the right customers is very important. Can you elaborate on this a little bit? What's your secret there regarding go-to-market strategy in general, maybe?
I think it boils down to one really simple word, which is no. No, we're not going to go attack that part of the market because it's very tempting. It's very intoxicating to try and sell to everyone. Not everyone is your ideal buyer. And so if you don't take the time to identify the people you truly want to go after and work with, you tend to either be distracted by low quality opportunities that you're not going to win, or you start trying to force your solution into markets where you're really not very, like, you're either not differentiated, or you're not going to be able to get the price you want, or the customers themselves, while willing to buy, don't really get the value for what you're selling. So if you can't say no to anyone, then it's going to be very hard to find the people that you really can say yes to.
Yes, that's right. How do you, or do you want to share how to find the potential or the right prospect? Is there any approach you would like to recommend? Maybe depending on the different stages of a company, even?
Well, I think so. That is really going to vary by what you're doing, right? Are you a
Mhm.
horizontal software? Are you a verticalized software, right? If you're
Yeah.
horizontal, then picking a couple of industries where you have the best traction or the best fit or it's the easiest process early might be the best way to go. If you're a vertical software, you've already kind of constricted your TAM down to a certain type of buyer or a certain type of industry to begin with. So then it's about segmentation. Every verticalized software, and I'll focus on that because that's my background, every vertical should be able to be segmented. Is it by geography? Is it by
Mhm.
size? Is it by the age of the business? Is it by their specialization? I was in medical device. You could specialize by what type of medical device. Are they a class 3 device that could really hurt someone? Or is it a tone depressor, right? Those are very different types of businesses and products. So I think if you take the time to, within vertical software, figure out your segmentations, you can decide over time, where do we either want to go, or where do we want to focus today based on the value of the market and your ability to address the key problems of that specific type of buyer. So it starts with
Mhm.
segmenting. They should
Okay.
all be able to be segmented.
Right. So how do you recommend to do targeting? I often hear cold calling doesn't work anymore, or cold emailing as well. Anything you would like to highlight there?
I think it depends a lot by who you're attacking, right? So if you are
Yeah.
calling people who generally aren't getting called, so I've called into accountants,
Mhm.
I've called into quality management professionals, they're not getting as many phone calls. So phone calls work. That was great. Now, if you are trying to cold call into CEOs and CFOs, that might be harder. They have a lot of gates in front of them they've intentionally built and ringed themselves with ways to prevent you from finding them. So first start out with, who is your champion or your core buyer in your vertical, and figure out what is the approach that's going to work best. The higher you go up the chain, the more relationships and introductions and being able to run what you would think of as a more enterprise sales motion come into play. If you are selling something that is really attacking problems for frontline members of the organization, then building a consensus from them might be a great way to attack that penetration into your market. And people aren't necessarily calling the frontline work of companies as much as they think they want to call mid or above management. So start with,
Mhm.
who was your champion, then back into what's the best approach. Cold calling can work great. Your buyer
Okay.
is going to be receptive to it. Content marketing, which everyone loves content marketing nowadays, that works great if you are the type of products where people are looking for education about it. If no one cares to be educated about your problem, you can pump out all the content in the world. It's not really going to do you any good.
Yeah. There is no standard solution for all SaaS companies, for example. Maybe we can summarize it with understanding the target persona deeply. It seems like you're emphasizing deeply understanding the target personas, right?
I'd say that that's really true. Is if you don't understand your buyer's problems and you don't understand how they buy
Mm.
software. So I'll say, for instance, having done multiple verticals in logistics technology, selling freight forwarders, they are a relationship sale to their clients. They might spend a year, 2 years, 3 years building that relationship to sell their services. And that's how they would prefer to be sold to. They would like you to get to know them. They would like to have multiple calls. If it could be in person, that's great. Um, but selling to medical device is entirely different. They don't want that same relationship. They're really trying to make relationship-free decisions about what's best for the health of the patient.
With this approach, Would be interesting to know a bit about your tech stack. Could you step us through this? What tools are you using?
We've decided to go with HubSpot for
Okay.
our CRM system. I think if you'd asked me that question even 3 or 4 years ago, I would have said Salesforce de facto. But I
Okay.
think HubSpot has made a lot of jumps, and they really can take a company to 30, 40, $50 million in ARR before you really have to consider the integratability of a larger system. So
Right.
that's the direction we're going. There's a lot of lead generation tools out there, ZoomInfo likes and the likes. Um, I find that with those tools, I like to rotate through them if I can every once in a while, because they tend to grab different data sets over time. And it also kind of depends again on your vertical. Some of them are stronger in more B2C or B2B. So that's a little bit of a commodity in my book. I'm really in favor of having a recording tool, whether it be a Gong or a Chorus, or there's a couple of other tools out there now. Clary just bought one that is pretty good as well.
Okay.
But whichever one you're going to use, using it religiously and really use it for coaching the team,
Mhm.
I think is super important. I like Gong's interface. I've tried a couple of them. I think it's pretty easy to use as they all go. What else? There's so many tools nowadays. And that would be the thing I would say is there's so many tech tools for sales and marketing teams, is being able to figure out what do you actually need versus, what do you want? And I actually made a declaration about a year and a half ago to my team and my revenue operations director. I said, you're not going to be approved to put in a new tool unless you tell me the one we're taking out,
Mhm. Okay.
because the bloat is telling a 25-year-old, whatever age SDR nowadays, here's 15 or 20 different tools to use every day. It's a big ask for them to be able to actually learn, manage, and effectively run a process. So I've actually gotten to the point of believing that less is a little bit more sometimes when you think about your tech stack, picking the things that really make an impact versus what is just kind of nice to have.
Mhm. Right. I think it's really great that you suggest this. It's all often underestimated how much effort it is to get used to a new tool, in addition to all the other tools that are already in use. How do you realize you need to change something in the tech stack? Are there any signals, or do you just do it after a specific time range continuously?
So looking at those annual basis as contracts come up, right? What is our usage? I'm really looking at who is using the software. And most of the good ones nowadays will
Okay.
let you go in and see who logged in, how much, what their usage is.
Mhm.
A tool is only as good as adoption. So I can put the greatest, in my opinion, tool in front of my team. And if no one uses it, it didn't really add any value to the business. And I can keep driving and harping on why they should use it and do more training. But ultimately, if it's not getting utilized, then it's not getting
Mhm.
any value into the business. And then you just ask people. Like, I'm a big proponent of, if you want to know, ask.
Yeah, that really makes sense. Well, what about customer success? Any tools or general advice on tools you could recommend there?
So I definitely think you should put in a CS or CX layer into the
Hmm.
business. Gainsight is the market leader. Churn Zero is, I think, a really strong player in that space as well. But having a tool that helps them, and again, this will depend on how you define customer success. Are they doing upsells? Are they doing cross sells? Are they doing renewals? What is their role and their responsibility? If it's
Hmm.
mostly ticketing and support, then I would be looking at ticketing and Zendesk and things like that. They are being tasked with really more of an account management or ownership role of that account. And now you're probably talking more about 20,000 plus annual contracts. And in the US, that's where you start to see that role of responsibility. Then I want a tool that's managing relationship and managing renewals. And it's also tied into their usage. You have to tie that thing back into your application to truly drive value for that CS manager to be able to understand patterns and reach out if there's red flags.
Okay. Any single source of truth do you prefer there? Is it HubSpot or?
I'm going to take the CRM as my single source of truths,
Okay.
as my de facto. So that has often been Salesforce in my experience. HubSpot, like I said, I think has evolved to the point where it can handle a lot of
Mhm.
that for many businesses, depends on complexity. But I do think that one place where everything connects and aligns so that we can go and agree. have experimented with data lakes and using Tableau and other tools to kind of aggregate multiple data points. If you have a large IT department, a lot of technical acumen, can build and manage your own Snowflake instances and things like that, I think that can be a strong solution. You're probably $20 to $30 million plus run rate before you can justify that type of data team. It's a big lift.
Yeah, that's right. I think the next question is really interesting. Looking forward to your answer, especially because of your experience and your impressive track record. What have you tried that didn't work? Anything you would like to mention that comes up?
One that sticks out to me always, think about this, is I tried to have player coaches, team lead managers who also sold when I was a first time VP, first time out revenue leader, and I was scaling a team. And as I was scaling the team, I kept thinking like in small jumps and small gaps, like, oh, we'll go from me managing 5 people to these people carrying a quota and managing 2 people. And then that will keep dividing like cells in the body. But it's not necessarily how a sales organization really works. It's not the same as sales. Most people need to have specialization in the job they're doing, right? So being a player coach is incredibly difficult. The idea that you're going to find multiple people in your organization that are both promotable and are going to be good at that role, hybrid as it is, incredibly unlikely. You should either be promoted from inside with a mix of outside, bringing in outside talent, but letting them do the management job when you're ready to have a full-time manager versus having them try and do 2 jobs at once. That was probably one of the things that I found was one of the biggest misses I did along the way.
Mm-hmm. Well, when did you realize it does work properly and how, especially?
I realized fairly quickly, maybe a quarter or 2 into the experiment, it was pretty easy to tell because the performance of the individual reps on the teams wasn't really keeping up with the expectation of that pod, right? I was interrogating the organization, like what's working, what's not, and interviewing people. And I kept hearing from the reps themselves, my manager is really more concerned with their deals than my deals. Like my manager is really a manager. They're just here kind of like as an advice because they have their own set of priorities. They're in sales, they're in revenue, they have a number to hit. They know that they're going to be judged on that. And it was fairly easy to learn that mistake from the evidence on the field. I wish I'd been able to foresee it and avoid it in the first place.
What was your solution?
We went to dedicated managers. It did require a larger span, both required and enabled a larger span of control though. So instead of having 3 team leads doing both jobs, I was able to have 2 managers and they had more people that they were supporting because they weren't having to sell entirely on their own. It also meant I could specialize each of those people's jobs, though. The managers got more management training and less how to be an AE training. And the AEs didn't have to worry so much about who's going to be there to help me if I need it.
Okay. You were able to avoid this error or this mistake sustainably, right?
Yeah. I mean, I made the first time. So as a first time VP, coming through my very first organization, actually myself growing from AE to manager to director to vice president, probably every mistake you can along the way. So the point is not to never make them, it's to not make them twice, right? So subsequently put that in my playbook where we really don't do that anymore. If we're ready to have a manager, we get a manager. Until we're ready, we don't have.
Okay. Nice. Talking about, I think that's already a nice lesson learned. Maybe you could give us 2 or 3 more lessons you've learned during your career that you would like to share with the audience.
For sure. I get asked fairly often from especially like brand new account executives or people who are very early in their career. They have either aspirations or goals about getting into leadership often. And so I get this question fairly often. One of mine is that you have to be willing to take relatively large risks in your career and be willing to fail at times, right? I've gone into restaurant hospitality technology, and then I took that into medical device technology, and then that into logistics. And then most recently, starting my own software company. And those are jumps across multiple verticals and then into different levels of leadership. And I have made plenty of mistakes along the way, but being too safe and too comfortable will often kind of prevent you from being willing to take that next jump that might be the one that takes you to a better opportunity for future and further growth, right?
Yeah.
Just being a little complacent can be, it's safe, but it's maybe not going to get you where you want to go if your goal is ultimately to get to a certain place with your career. One of the others that is in revenue, sometimes just being different is what is really required. So everybody wants to create a new category. Everybody wants to create a new type of solution or solve a new pain problem. If you're in a competitive market, you don't have to be better at everything. What is your core differentiation? What are you best at? And focusing on that will also lead you to trying to find those buyers who care the most about what you actually excel at, right? So focus on your differences, and use those as your strengths. And then the last one would be, especially for anybody who wants to grow their career or you're in leadership, is surround yourself with people who can teach you something, right? So go out and find other people that know things that you don't know, podcasts, books. I'm a big believer in reading. I see you got book background there. My whole bookshelf down here is full of them. So they can't all be right. So take it with a grain of salt, right? I've got about 150 different sales books I've collected. They can't all be right about everything. But as long as I'm going back and reviewing them and thinking about them, I can apply their different lessons to the different problems I experience along the path. If I never read them or never listened to them, then I wouldn't have the knowledge to bring up at the appropriate time. Don't stop learning. Even if it's not relevant today, it might be relevant tomorrow.
You don't need to invent the wheel every time, right? But take the right knowledge, things out of the knowledge issues you can find, like books, and combine it together in the right way that fits for you. I think that's really important. Yeah. And surrounding people, talking about surrounding with the right people, looks like it's really important, especially if you would like to start with a sales leader role, to have people that embrace failure, right? And really see the positive things and try to continue and start something new and learn out of it, right?
Absolutely. The best, baseball, I've always said the best baseball players in the world are wrong twice as much as they're right. The same goes for sellers and revenue leaders. A great close rate is 20, 30%. Means you are going to lose twice as much as you. So if you're focused on that all the time, it's a miserable experience. So the people who can focus on that 30% to get excited about it, those are the people who can usually keep going through and deal with the other 2/3 of the time where it just didn't work out.
Exactly. Cool. Sounds great. So talking about books, do you have maybe one or two recommendations that you would like to highlight right now?
Absolutely. I just spent this past summer and set myself a challenge to read a dozen new ones and go back to a couple of tried and true as well while I'm at it. So this is very top of mind for me. Amp It Up by Frank Slootman. He's the CEO of Snowflake, multiple time CEO, Datadog, ServiceNow. Anybody who's serious about building a high performance culture, whether you're in one or you want to be designing one, should read that book. It's fantastic. His proof is in what he's produced, right? So that he's really keen on setting up a specific set of processes and circumstances that lead to good results. Good results come from a good process. And I think he really believed that. I also just read Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. I thought that was really a great book for anybody who's going on a hero's journey, as we say, or an entrepreneur's journey, about kind of how it always takes longer. It's always harder than you think. And if you're a brand new seller or brand new to revenue, you want to start thinking about kind of how to do an educative process or how to teach your buyers how to buy. The Challenger sale is a classic. Some things never go out of style. And I would say that one never does. It's one of the ones I get to new sellers as soon as they ask me, or as soon as we hire them, we usually ship them a couple of books, and that's almost often one.
Nice. So we even have some recommendations for people in our audience, different stages of their career, different phases. Sounds great. Thanks a lot.
For sure. There's so many out there. I would just, be willing to invest the time in learning. And like I said, these are tools you'll employ at different stages of your growth trajectory. Just like a mechanic, they have all the tools in the wall in the shop. They pull out the one they need at the right time. They don't go to the store and buy one every time they need a new one.
Yeah. You can use it like a workbench, actually.
Yep, absolutely.
Great. Thank you very much, Jimmy. I think we can come to the end of this episode. So, all right, everyone. That brings us to the end of the episode of Speak Revenue. I want to thank our guest, Jimmy Speyer, for joining us today and sharing such valuable insights. A huge shout out to all our listeners. Your support means the world to us. Remember to check out our website at speakrevenue.com for a full transcript and additional resources. And if you enjoyed the show, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you go for your listening needs. It really helps get the word out. Also, follow us on LinkedIn and Insta or YouTube. We'll be back soon with another great guest. Until then, stay curious and keep listening.